Hola, weebs, geeks, and LGBTQIA peeps! I hope you guys are having a great day. It is currently Monday, if I am posting this on time. If not, I don't know what happened. Probably school. Okay, so in this fanfiction, everything's been going pretty chill, pretty smooth. Shay's just trying to figure out her powers. So I'm kind of scared. I feel like something's gonna happen. I'm curious to see where this goes. So I'm curious to see if there's like one big main villain we're gonna have to fight or something. I don't know. I'm waiting for this romance though. I really want this romance. Like, it's blossoming, but I'm like dumping water on it. I'm like, grow! Come on! Grow! But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. The fanfiction and music are linked in the description below, as well as the sound effects if there is any in this video. And make sure to go support the author, guys, because we love authors in this community. Alright, I'll see you at the end. Hope you enjoy. Are you sure this is a good idea? Peter, to be perfectly honest, was not sure in the slightest. However, he was not going to let his friend know that. He put on a lopsided grin and nodded firmly. Positive. He wiped a hand at his brow, the late August sun beating down on him. Shay was clearly nervous. He could tell easily by the way her hands trembled as she raised them. Peter had to admit that he was nervous as well, and had run through his head every possible way this could go wrong. Maybe you should relax, before trying, he suggested. She glanced at him before nodding. He watched her take a deep breath before exhaling, allowing her shoulders to relax. You just gonna go for it? I'm just gonna go for it. Peter took a few steps backwards in the large abandoned area he had found. It was some sort of storage area or something. It didn't matter. What mattered was no one really came there unless to drop off another large crate. And even then, the teens were in the middle, where no one could find them without knowing exactly where to go. Alright. Peter turned his attention back to Shay as she breathed the word, I'm ready. She drew a hand back before shooting it out abruptly. A ball of swirling purple energy shot from her hand and flew through the air before striking one of the large supply crates, a thing bigger than their apartments put together. The metal sitting dented inwards as it was struck and was burned from the impact. That was awesome, Peter said, gaping at where the energy had hit. I think we can roll basic energy balls as good. Shay rubbed her arm. Can I try again? I don't really know what I did there. Peter's features became more serious. Sounds good. I had the same thing happen to me when I started out. Go ahead. Sure enough, when Shay drew her hand back to send out another ball of energy, only a few wisps of purple light came out, disappearing into the air a moment later. She gritted her teeth and tried again. The next attempt yielded an attack much larger than she had meant, resulting in the crate it struck exploding open. Both enhanced teens winced at the loud sound that boomed with it. Sorry, Shay said as Peter moved his jaw around to make his ears stop ringing. I should probably work on that. Peter simply flashed her a thumbs up at her words. Shay turned back to the crate again and bit her lip, before turning once more to face a different one instead. One a bit less broken. She took in a deep breath, drew her hands back, and sent out another burst of energy. This one was much smaller than the previous ones, resulting in a tiny ball that flew through the air slowly before disappearing before it even reached the target. What did I do the first time? She cried, throwing her hands in the air in frustration. She glanced at her friend, who shrugged. You know what they say, Peter said, dragging out the last word and leaving her to finish it. Practice makes perfect, she guessed. I don't know either. That sounds good though. Shay laughed before repositioning herself and trying again. 2 hours passed by, and by the end of it, there were barely any crates left in the immediate area that hadn't been totally destroyed. Shay staggered back and nearly fell. Peter was by her side in a second, gripping her shoulders to keep her steady. You should probably stop for the day, he said. Shay nodded dumbly, still dazed from the energy usage, and he snorted before leading her over to where their bags were, near where he had been standing. As Peter pulled his backpack over his shoulder, he noticed his friend now sitting on the ground, blinking what would normally be a comical amount. Shay, you okay? She didn't respond, looking out into the distance as she leaned back against the crate. Peter opened his mouth to speak to the girl before noticing that the girl's eyes were now closed. Her breathing had leveled out. He stared at her for a moment before stuffing his friend's small bag into his own and pulling it back over his shoulders. Peter's eyes trailed back to Shay again, and he clicked his tongue as he realized his problem. Once more pulling his bag off of his body, he unzipped it quickly and pulled out his suit buried at the bottom. Yanking it out as fast as he could, he pulled the bag onto his back again, wondering faintly what Spider-Man with a backpack would look like before he shook those thoughts away and scooped his friend into his arms. You're surprisingly light, Shay, he muttered to the girl. She didn't stir at all. I can't shoot webs like this, can I? He could, but he couldn't aim them, and definitely couldn't swing around the city like that. Alright, we're gonna get creative, Peter said as he lowered his friend down again. A net web would be quite helpful now. He knew it would. He had used it to carry a person before to the hospital. It had become an option after the suit hacking. He really needed to get on that. Maybe Shay could help him later. Let's see. Peter shot out a few webs at a crate and watched as they fell, but one hooked itself to the tip of one and spiraled around it. Peter knew the idea in his head was stupid, but then again, the majority of his ideas were stupid and they had worked out up until now. Okay then, we're gonna try this incredibly dumb idea and hope that it works out. Peter took off the backpack for the bajillionth time and adjusted it onto his friend's shoulders instead, before webbing the straps to her arms to hold them. He then positioned her against one of the crates and squatted down, pulling her onto his back. Piggyback ride, he thought. He webbed her hands to his shoulders and her legs to the back of his own. He didn't need those to swing. Peter fiddled with a web shooter button and took a deep breath. He glanced back before turning forward and preparing to shoot a web and pull them into the air. You know, Peter said to Shay, even if she couldn't hear, if either of us dies during this, I'm blaming you. Peter exhaled and steeled his resolve. Here we go. Peter pressed down and pulled, allowing himself to soar through the air. He let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding as the friend he was helping didn't shift. The webs were holding strong. He grinned and let out a whoop as he shot a web at one of the taller buildings, pulling them forward again until they were shooting through the downtown of New York, heading off towards Shay's apartment. Peter waved to a few people as they shouted out to him from the ground. He looped around Stark Tower before turning and shooting along to his friend's building. He landed on top of the platform right outside Shay's window. Peter barely caught his balance. It was much different landing with a person clinging to you than not. Peter looked at the lock on the window and sighed. Well, this is unfortunate. He pulled Shay off of him by ripping the webs off and set her leaning against the wall before pulling off his suit and pulling on his normal clothes. Peter ran into the lobby with a quick, "Hi, Lob." "Parker, you heading up to Shay?" Peter faltered and tapped the elevator button before turning his attention to the man at the front desk and nodding. "Where else?" "Can you take this to her?" he requested, holding out a letter. "It's mail for her." Peter nodded and ran over as the elevator arrived, grabbing the envelope before running back to catch the lift before the doors closed. "Thanks, Parker." Lob's words got to him just before the elevator door slid closed and began the rickety journey up to the 5th floor. Peter swallowed down the nerves that he always seemed to get in this elevator. He really did hate it. Peter hopped out when he arrived on the 5th floor and moved immediately over to Shay's apartment's door.
Hello, Peter.
Alice's voice greeted him warmly.
Come on in.
Thanks, Alice. Peter grinned as the door unlocked. He opened the door and closed it behind him quickly. Alice, can you unlock the window?
You've got it, Peter.
The teenager walked to the window and pulled it open, dropping the letter clutched in his hand onto the table as he passed it. Shay was right where he left her. He stepped out onto the platform and threw the bag into the apartment carelessly before scooping his friend up into his arms and maneuvering himself back inside. Peter laid Shay onto the couch and moved back to the window, yanking it down and hearing it click as soon as it was closed, locking it tight.
What happened to Shay?
Alice asked. She used too much energy, Peter explained. Passed out from it. Alice actually made a humming noise in response to this and said no more. A small sound from the couch drew Peter's attention abruptly. Oh, ow, Shay groaned as she pressed a hand to her forehead. God, why? Morning, Shay, Peter grinned, sitting back in one of the folding chairs by the table. How'd you sleep? Absolutely horrible, Shay said, still not opening her eyes. I'm quite sure this is the timeline God abandoned. Peter pressed his lips into a thin line and nodded solemnly. I thoroughly agree with that, dear friend, and my sympathy would go out to you, but it appears I have none left to spare. Shay snorted and seemed to force her eyes open. Oh, yay, I'm home. Yep, Peter said, popping the last letter. I had to carry you all the way here. You're Spider-Man. I'm sure it wasn't that hard, she said, rolling her eyes. Oh, but it was. The torture, the agony, the unbearable pain! Shay let out a laugh at his antics, and Peter felt a grin appear on his features. Seriously, though, don't do that again. It's not fun carrying around an unconscious person without the suit updates. I'm sorry to be an inconvenience. You should be. Shay seemed to bite back a smile at his words, waiting for a moment before she asked, How did I do with the powers before I, passed out? I think you did good, Peter said. They look much better at the end. I think you've probably got the hang of the energy balls. Shay grinned at him and looked down at her hands. Thanks, Petey. Peter nodded. Oh! Peter exclaimed, moving his hands to the envelope sitting on the table beside him. Lav gave me a letter for you. A letter? Shay asked, furrowing her eyebrows. Who's it from? Peter turned the letter around and scanned the address. It says it's from Florida. Florida? Yep. Peter tossed it to her and she grabbed the paper from the air. Shay glanced at Peter before carefully tearing the envelope open. She pulled out the folded piece of paper and turned it over. The corners were slightly bent and torn up, like whoever sent it didn't really care. Who's it from? I think... Shay paused as she unfolded the letter. A small piece of paper fell out onto her lap. She took the postcard that had fallen onto her lap and turned it over. Her face twisted into a frown and she tossed it down to the ground. Peter could just barely read the cursive on the colorful background that read, Greetings from St. Thomas. What is it? Peter asked, concerned as his friend's features got darker and her frown grew as she scanned the writing on the letter. Shay released a growl as she finished reading and crumpled up the paper, throwing it into the corner of the room before standing up and stalking off down the hallway. Shay, wait! Where are you going? Peter's words were cut off as the sound of a door slamming echoed through the small apartment. Peter stood up and looked down the hallway, seeing his best friend's bedroom door close tightly. Peter lowered his hand and let the words die in his throat. He chewed the inside of his cheek and turned around, looking around the room that surrounded him, until his brown doe eyes landed on a piece of paper sitting in the corner. Peter glanced back at Shay's closed door before moving over to the corner. Peter picked up the weighted letter and carefully unfolded it. wincing whenever he heard the delicate crumpled sheet tear a bit. Finally, the paper was unfolded, and he placed it onto the table to smooth it out until the words were illegible. "There we go," Peter muttered, holding the smoothed paper up. "Let's see what secrets you hold. The meaning of life? The secrets of the universe? The truth of whether or not a hot dog can be considered a sandwich?" Peter looked at the beginning of the letter and began to read it quietly to himself. "Shay, the postcard you got was from Jeffrey's brother's wedding on St. Thomas. We took a cruise down there and stayed for a week before flying back. As you very well know, I work very hard to provide enough money to support you with me so very far away, and I deserve more credit than you have ever given me, but that is besides the point. Jeff and I decided that it would be best for me and my stress levels to take the first-class plane back to the mainland. Of course, Jeffrey hit a rough spot at work, and money is going to be a bit late for him this month. This, with the plane ticket being on the higher end, means that I can't give you as much money for this round. I expect for you not to complain at all. You should know better than to do that. If I hear any complaints or any changes in your schoolwork once you get back into it, just because of this, there will be consequences. Carolina Lane." Peter furrowed his eyebrows at the letter. He started when he heard the sound of someone clearing their throat. His gaze shot up from the words on the paper to the entrance of the hallway where his friend stood. Shay's fists were clenched, her eyes glinting as she stared hard at the ground. A few strands of hair fell in front of her face. Finally, after a long, painful silence, the girl sighed and looked up at Peter, brushing a stray lock of hair out of her face before she said, "I guess I owe you some sort of explanation, huh?" I knew something was gonna happen this chapter. I could feel it. I was like, something's gonna happen. It's been way too chill. I think Carolina is our mother. So... Oh my gosh. I can't believe this. Poor Shay. Yeah, this was an interesting chapter. Very, very, like the mood just abruptly changed. It was like, normal, funny, Peter being quirky. And then we pass out and we're like, ooh, used too much power. And then we get a letter and it's like, boom. Sad boy moments. Sad boy hours. It's sad boy hours. All right. I see how you did it. All right, author. Do that, I guess. Mess with my feelings. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And, yeah, I really do. It's been pretty cool so far. I'm very interested to see what chapter 24 holds. Hopefully, happier moments. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one, and you should be expecting a Bakugo fanfiction. Not my snowflake, but it's the other. I forget the name of my own series. Hold on. I was like, wait, what did I name my series again? Oh, I don't think Couples TikTok. Yeah, Bakugo's Couples TikTok. That's coming out soon. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.